Hi, and welcome to Kuhn, Kraft, Yoga, and Design. I'm Laura. So glad to have you here. Today's sequence is a yin sequence, so we're going to have some longer holds. And this is what I would like to call our happy, healthy hips sequence. A lot of these poses are something that I do daily just so I can feel more comfortable into my hips. I sit a lot throughout the day, work on the computer, sit at my other job, and so you just get very tight in the lower body. I won't lie that this will be something that can be quite intense. You may want to have some props like some blocks or a blanket or two or even a bolster. I will not be using props. You can certainly do this without anything, but I will cue and give you some ideas if you want to add in those additions for your practice to help find a little more ease. Let's go ahead and get centered onto our mat. You can just come and take a comfortable seat, crossing the legs. And then if you feel like you are ready, you can start to maybe softly close the eyes or lower the gaze. And the hands can come to rest onto the knees. Taking the first couple of minutes is so important just to ground and to start to allow yourself to slow down and reconnect with your body. Using this time to make an assessment, just to notice how you feel. Physically and mentally. Maybe you notice that even though your body is starting to slow down, your mind is still moving at quite a high pace. You have this time for yourself, and we can start to allow everything just to move on by. We're just here to feel good within ourselves. We'll start to deepen that connection. Take the hands and place them onto the outside of the rib cage so that your thumbs are facing the back. And just gently have your hands resting there. Again, you can keep your eyes closed. We're going to use this tactile sensation of the hands on the side ribs to notice how our breath moves in and out of the body. No need to force the breath. Of course, as we pay more attention, it is a little harder to not control the breath, but just allow it to be nice and easy. We don't want to find ourselves out of breath or making the exhales or inhales excessive. We just want to ride that inhale and exhale like a wave. And start to notice how it fills up the body. Traveling down the throat, filling up the chest, expanding the ribs, maybe filling up all the way down to the bottom of the belly. And then you start to empty on the exhale. The ribs softly fall and close in. And you can feel the belly start to release and empty. Take a few more breaths here. Noticing the expansion of the belly, the ribs, and the chest. On the next exhale, let's go ahead and release the arms, release the hands, maybe give the shoulders a little wiggle. And we're going to come into our first pose, which will be our seated butterfly. So take the soles of the feet together, and since this is early on in the practice, you may be a little tighter in the hips. You can have the feet further away from you. Or if you feel like you're a little more open, you'll start to draw the heels in closer to the groin. And then from here, you can stay up nice and tall, even support the knees with blocks or rolled up blankets. But wherever you're at, if you feel like you want to have a little bit more into those hips, we're going to start to bend forward and then round into the upper back. Allowing the head and the neck just to be loose. The back of the neck is smooth. Again, reconnecting to the breath as you inhale down the back line of the body, noticing how much the lungs fill up on the backside. This is where the majority of the lungs are located. Although sometimes the sensation of the lungs filling up in the back body is less notable through our day, but a little more easy to recognize as we come into our forward folds. And perhaps as you hold in these movements, if you feel like you can lower down even just a little bit more, feel free to do so. And then come once more back into stillness. On an inhale, we can walk ourselves back to an upright position. Let's take the hands behind us and then place the soles of the feet on the mat. We'll take just a couple of windshield wipers to release the hips. Kind of noticing how that first movement feels into the lower body to start our practice. And then we'll return to center. The hands stay behind you. This time we'll just take both of the feet flat on the floor, and we're going to take some active windshield wipers, but we're going to mobilize just one side at a time. So we'll start by leaving the right foot and knee where it's at, and then just allow the left hip to open, dropping that left knee out to the floor. It'll probably be lifted, but notice as you open, maybe you notice the glutes fire and they want to engage. Think about allowing the glutes to relax. We're going to pause here and just allow it to soften. And then on an inhale, we'll open up, come back to an upright position, and then we'll let the right knee fall out. Again, soften, take a moment. You may need to shift slightly on your sit bones to allow that right knee to open. And then let's come back to an upright, once more on each side. Back to a flat foot, and then we'll allow the right side to open once more. It may be quite different on each side. Of course, this is dependent on your inner thigh and also your hip flexors. And back up to flat feet. So we're going to spin around and face the top side of our mat and prepare for our head to knee pose. And for this, we're going to extend the right leg out long and then draw the left foot in, bring it to the inside of that right thigh. From here, you can certainly stay up nice and tall. You can also, if this is a lot already on your hamstring, you could even have the right knee bent or even supported with a bolster underneath the knee. Wherever you're at, if you feel like you can make more space, we'll start to walk forward. And then allow the back to round. Once you can't keep the back straight any longer, we're going to give ourselves the permission to round into the upper body. Allow the shoulders to spread wide across the back, and then just fold over into our head to knee pose. Working on that external hip rotation on the left side, and getting a bit of a hamstring stretch onto the back of the right leg. This is why I love doing these postures before bed or at the end of the day. It's such a great way to reawaken the backside of the body. Just allow the upper body to be soft. Tap back into the breath. Enjoy the space that you're making within your body and within yourself. The freedom to move and to work on your mobility. Beautiful. On an inhale, let's rise up. You can extend the left leg out. Maybe before we move into the other side, give the legs a little bit of a wiggle, a little thwack against the side or the back of the mat. And when you're ready, we'll come to stillness and keep that left leg extended long. Draw the right foot in. And then again, having a cushion underneath the left knee if you feel like that back of that left hamstring is tight. When you're ready, maybe start to walk forward. Maybe you pause here and just want to stay upright. If you do so, it might feel nice to have a couple of blocks underneath the forearms and stay a little bit higher and supported in that space. If you're up higher and then you feel like you're able to lower down a little more as we hold, you can start to lower. But once you find that new position, again, find your way into stillness. We're all about using the breath so that we can remain in stillness and hold these postures for about 2 or 3 minutes. Again, we'll inhale and use the upper body strength to slowly come out of the posture. Always come out slow. You may be a little more loose than you expect. Straighten out that right leg. Again, give the knees and the legs a little bit of a wiggle to release into what we have just created. And then when you're ready, we're going to open up into a wide-legged straddle. So recenter yourself on your mat so that you feel cushioned. Sometimes having the mat underneath the heels and the ankles is really helpful. Even having a blanket, because sometimes our feet can be quite sensitive. Open up the legs only as far as you feel comfortable. Again, just like as we had in the head to knee pose, you can have the knees bent and you can start to walk yourself forward just like this, keeping the knees bent. If you feel comfortable, you can have the legs out straight. And then when you're ready, start to walk forward into your wide-legged straddle. The forearms can come down. You can have the arms on blocks. If you are super loose in your wonderful hamstrings, you can come all the way down flat on your belly. I am not there yet. I am pretty cold. This is my first workout of the morning, so definitely tight. But wherever you're at, and that's why we're in this practice, we need to accept ourselves where we're at, because that changes every day, sometimes every hour. So we'll start to relax. Again, use the breath. Breathe in deeply. Allow it to travel down the back of your spine. Just allow the upper body to hang heavy. Seek out that softness with the breath, because you may have those areas where you are tightening that you maybe don't notice as you hold these big postures. Maybe you have a little bit of tightness creeping up into your jaw or in between the eyebrows. Find those points and replace them with softness. Allow the skin across the forehead to smooth the sides of the face and the jaw, just to relax. Maybe you feel the tops and the inner thighs start to melt. Maybe you envision a light, almost like a warmth, in the areas that you want to release a little bit more. Maybe you picture a color for your light. Often I like to envision a soft golden light. Maybe the warmth of that light traveling to the back of the hamstrings, across the outside of the glutes, and into our hips. I should note as well, when you're in this forward straddle, your feet can be flexed or they can be pointed or just relaxed, whatever you feel is comfortable here. And maybe you feel a little bit more of a stretch with your feet in a different position. Start to ease your way out on an inhale. Bring yourself to an upright posture. You can use the hands to draw the legs in. Bring both of the feet in towards center. And again, we'll just take a few windshield wipers to release the hips and the inner thighs and those hamstrings. Wonderful. From here, we're going to come into our next big hip opener, which is fire log pose. We're going to begin in fire log by having the left shin down on the earth, the foot flexed, and if you can, you'll draw the right shin right on top of the left, again flexing the knee, and then sitting nice and tall. Your knee might be lifted slightly. You can also have a blanket or a block to support here, but this can be quite intense onto the knees and into the hips, so you may want to sit higher up onto a folded blanket. If that is still too much into the hips and the knees, you'd want to adjust by taking the right shin off of the left and just having it directly in front of the left shin. It'll still be a very nice hip opener, and you can even increase the intensity of this posture, just as we will in fire log, by starting to walk the hands forward and fold the torso over the top of that right leg. Whichever version you want to take a moment, grab your props, and then come into your posture. From your fire log pose, again, this is already quite a lot into the hips. If you want to feel a little bit more or vary the intensity here, you'll walk the hands forward, maybe have forearms to blocks, or come all the way down to the earth. And just enjoy this forward fold. As we hold here in this fire log pose, or in your variation, we are of course folded over that top front leg. But we don't want to just think of falling and draping the body over towards the front. Also think about keeping the hips and the tailbone connected, and having that grounding towards the back of the body. Maybe as you feel this opposition with the weight in front, but also keeping the hips connected in the back of the mat. Maybe you notice a little bit more of a stretch into the hips and also into the lower back. Holding here for about 3 more breaths. And when you're ready, again, using the hands to walk yourself back to an upright position. You can also use the hands to unfurl the legs. And then we're going to come into a half frog or a frog variation. Again, grab a blanket, pad the knees if you feel like you need padding. And we're going to start with the right knee bent. So take that frog position, that frog shape, by having the knee in line with the ankle and then the right foot flexed. From here, your option, you can either take your full frog by walking that left knee out again into that squared position. Or if you would like to take half frog with me, we're going to extend that left leg out long. You can have the left sole of the foot meeting the mat if you have the ankle mobility. If not, you might want to keep the left foot flexed to try to keep your leg active and to try to avoid having any tension in the knee. Whatever feels best for you, this is going to be very intense to that inside, that inner groin into the left leg. And then you can stay up nice and high on your hands. You can still come to forearms, of course. If you want to make it more challenging, you're going to start to shift the hips back towards the ankle. This one we won't hold quite as long as we will our other postures. It's a little harder to keep ourselves upright in this posture. Also, frog is quite intense. So spending any time in it all is of a great value. Continue to breathe through the pose and find your stillness. I won't hold it against you if you like to be a rocker. There are some people who love to rock in the frog pose. Having a little bit of movement can be quite soothing. Also, sometimes it works out well with the frequency of your breath. It is your practice. We want to find our shape and stay in it as much as we can. Wonderful. To ease out, shift forward. You can bend that left knee if it was straightened, draw the heels together. And that will make it a little bit more easy for you to bring both of the knees together. We're going to turn around and come into a tabletop position just for a short moment. And then we're going to go ahead and rock out the legs. So let's extend the right leg, tuck the back right toes. And then we're just going to shift back and forth on those right toes. I got a little crack in my ankle. So we're getting a little movement into the ankle, but we're also stretching into the back of the right leg. A little alternate movement for you here. Let's switch it out. We're going to extend the left leg long, rocking on the left toes, feeling a stretch in the back of the left calf. Wonderful. And from here, we're going to tuck both of the toes and we're going to push back into downward facing dog. We're not going to stay in our downward facing dog. We're just going to use this as a transition to draw the right knee up and come into our swan pose. Or in your vinyasa, you're probably used to calling this your half pigeon. So extend the left leg out long so that the knee is rolled down and facing down onto the mat. The right knee is bent, and you can have the right heel drawn in as close to your body as you feel is comfortable for your day. If you are comfortable with having the right shin more to a parallel portion towards the front end of the mat, more power to you. That is very complex onto the right knee. So maybe we aren't ready for that today. But we can go ahead and stay right here, nice and tall in our swan pose, maybe seated on a block or having a blanket folded up underneath the right hip so that we feel that we're nice and balanced. Having the weight over the hips and the pelvis, getting a little bit more of a stretch and also a gentle back bend. If you'd like, you can start to walk the hands forward. Maybe come to the forearms, or maybe you walk the hands all the way out for sleeping swan. Holding here for a couple of breaths. This has to be, I would say hands down, one of my favorite hip openers. I find it such a good lead. It works so many things. It works into the outside. Right now, we're working to the outside of the right hip, getting external rotation. We're also opening into the front of that left hip. And even we're getting, as we were in the upright position, we're getting a gentle back bend. You might even be getting a small sensation into the front of the left quad. And if you eventually work this into king pigeon, you get a much deeper sensation into the front of that left quad as you draw the left foot up. It's not somewhere we will go today, but again, it all starts with the beginning, and our half pigeon can be just that. When you're ready, you're going to go ahead and draw the hands in. Use the hands to push yourself back to an upright position. And then lift up with the hips. Go ahead and send that right leg back. You can go ahead and shake the hips out. Maybe give them a little bit of a wiggle. And when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and come back into our seated position, and we're going to work the opposite side, starting again with fire log. So this time the right shin onto the mat and then the right foot flexed. If you want, you can stack the left shin on top of the right or place the left shin in front wherever you feel like you might be. And it could be totally different on this side than you were on the other. Different array of props, a different setup. From here, you can start nice and tall. Stay right here, or maybe start to walk the hands forward, hinging at the hips. Draw the forearms down. Maybe head comes to a block. Again, feel that connection with that earth, and you're going to notice that opposition, the folding forward, the heaviness of the front body, but still feel weighted and grounded into the back body, into the pelvis and the hips, and allow them to sink backwards into the mat. Reconnect with the breath if you need to find it again. Notice the waves as they fill your body. And on an inhale, we'll come back up. Again, notice how we're not moving very much, but you might feel the heat starting to build into your hips and into your lower body joints. Maybe take a couple of windshield wipers and release those hips. We're going to prepare for our next pose. Coming into that frog variation again, you can have the option of taking your full frog, or we can take our half frog variation on the opposite side. So when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and swing our feet around. Keep the left knee in line with the left ankle. The left foot is flexed. From here, you can either come into your full frog and walk the right knee out, or you'll go ahead and extend that right leg out long and take the sole of the foot to the mat, or flex the foot if that feels good for you. From here, maybe you start to sink the hips back and keep them a little bit more closer to that left heel. If it feels good, you can also lower down onto your forearms. A couple of blocks might be helpful as well. Continue to breathe in and out. It's true that in stillness, a lot of these postures can become more intense. Our mind has time to dwell on what we're feeling. So reconnect with that breath. Use the breath to stay in the posture and to find your way through, just to stay right at that edge. We don't want to feel any sharpness or any pain. That's when you should start to back out of the pose and ease out. Take your time to come back into it. But we want to have the ability to relax into the pose. We don't want to tighten. We don't want to feel like the whole body is stiffening up just to stay here. When you're ready, we're going to shift forward. If your leg was straight, you can start to bend that left or right knee and draw the heels in together. And then start to bring the knees in. From here, again, we're going to spin around to face the top edge of the mat. We can go ahead and take those ankle rocks. This time we'll start on the left side and just rock back and forth. This actually feels really good into the bottom of my foot. Also a stretch down into that spot as well. If you have tight toes or tight ankles, you may like this. When you're ready, we'll switch over to the right side and then kick that right foot back, tuck the toes, and start to push the ankle towards the back wall. And then moving from there, we're going to tuck both of the toes and then press back into our downward facing dog. Again, just using this to give us a little more space to draw the left knee up and inward for half pigeon or your swan pose in yin. And then we'll come with the right leg extended back out long behind you, the right knee facing down, and then the left knee is bent, adjusting that left shin however feels good for your body. And then we're going to stay up high to start with, enjoying this gentle back bend, allowing the weight, the full amount of the torso to go into those hips, into the pelvis, to create a little bit more sensation by having it centered upright. And you may want to stay right here. If you're really feeling a great stretch in an upright position, you might want to hang out here. If this is a little too much back bend, a little too much into the low back, feel free to start walking it forward. Come to the forearms or extend the arms out long in front of you for our sleeping swan. Enjoy your time in your practice. And know that even though these are slower practices, they're a great tie into a lot of your more active movements. If you are a runner, if you like doing much faster and heated vinyasa practices, having a quieter practice is a great thing to balance the rest of your movement. This is a strong part of your mobility practice in your body, because you can be strong and yet not be very mobile. Slowly, we'll start to rise up, maybe coming first to your forearms and then up with your hands to an upright posture in your half pigeon or your swan pose. And then from here, let's go ahead and rock onto that left hip, and we're just going to swing the right leg around. If you want to take a moment just to stretch out the legs or do some windshield wipers, by all means, feel free to do so. We're going to come into our last movement, which will be malasana or yogi squat. You can't have a happy hip sequence without a good squat hold. So in your squat, sometimes it's nicer to come up to standing first and then lower down. I might be a little off camera, but either way, our feet are going to be at a slight diagonal, maybe a little bit wider for the hips. This is going to be based on your body type and situation. And then start to lower down into your squat. Now, your hips or your heels might be lifted. You can absolutely stay right here with the heels lifted. You could also have a blanket right underneath there to feel supported and less wobbly. I started learning my yogi squat by having a block right underneath my tailbone and sitting right onto it. And that's where I needed to start to feel comfortable and to be able to relax in this posture, because it is pretty intense on the hips. Wherever you're at, if you are able to take the heels to the earth, go ahead and lower them when you feel ready. Elbows to the inside of the knees. And then a gentle push outward with the elbows as we open up into the inner groin. We'll keep the chest nice and lifted and also the collarbone wide. Lifting the crown of the head up towards the sky. And maybe taking a soft gaze out 3 or 4 feet in front of you. And we'll hold here for our last few breaths before we close in Shavasana. To release out of your malasana, we'll go ahead and take the hands to the mat in front of us. You can shift up, lift the hips up, even come into a halfway lift or a forward fold. Take a moment here. And when you're ready, we're going to lower down onto the mat. We're going to close in a child's pose for our Shavasana. If your hips need a little break, you can keep it as a narrow-legged child's pose with the knees together, and then you can start to fold forward. Arms can extend out long, but you can also just fold the hands and then take the forehead to the back of the hands. If you're like, hey, my hips are doing great and I'd like to just take a wide-legged child's pose, go ahead and spread the knees out wide, maybe coming to the width of the mat with the big toes touching, and then sink the hips back towards the heels. Wherever you're at, we're going to close in the last couple minutes here just by taking a couple of moments to ourselves. Again, enjoying that movement of the breath. If you are in a narrow-legged child's pose, maybe noticing how the belly fills up and expands across the thighs. Making that connection with yourself, almost like a whole body hug. And when you're ready, we're going to start to come out of the posture. Maybe if your hands were folded, maybe you extend the arms out long. Really reach, dig in with the pads of the fingertips and start to crawl the arms forward, making it a great big stretch, opening up to the underside of the armpits. And then you can shift forward, coming through a tabletop and kicking those ankles out to the side. And we'll once more take a seated position back onto the center of our mat. When you're ready, we're all going to take a nice, great big inhale and draw the arms up. Bring the palms together to touch, and then draw them down through heart center with a small tuck of the chin. Grateful for each other, grateful for ourselves for showing up today and coming onto our mat. Thank you, as always, for joining me on my channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you always get notifications of new practices every single week. And as always, have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.